we took a really defensive measure with Bitcoin simply because we were watching other businesses who are, if you're so much as, left of the current administration by
Hmm.
a millimeter, it's enough to cause problems.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy being in the industry and not sharing a lot of the same ideologues with people. And, it's just too much of a risk to be in fiat and to have a different opinion.
As I'm sure all of you guys know, I've been living on crypto for quite a few years now, but that's always been easier for me because, I don't have any kids, I don't have a company and things like that. Kind of as a lone gun working in the crypto space, it's been a little less challenging than it otherwise could be. Well, it turns out that there are some people who are more hardcore than me that are kind of pushing the envelope even further. My friend Esteban Valdez is one such of these people who has started to take his business to operate on Bitcoin, increasingly growing the percentage of employees that are taking their entire salary in Bitcoin. I believe it's over 50% at this point, and trying to use it as an actual money for the company. So I recently sat down with him and had a discussion on the finer points of this. Exactly how did he do this? Hopefully, we all can learn how to do this ourselves with our own businesses. And me personally, I'm learning a lot from this because I want to do a series on how to build a business on crypto sometime earlier next year. And information like this is absolutely invaluable for that quest. So, anyway, hope you really enjoy this. So, hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure to once again speak with the one and only Esteban Valdez. How's it going, man?
What's going on, dude?
Yeah, I've been very much looking forward to chatting about this thing. I mean, our previous chats have been just, you know, conversational. Let's see about talk about the news, see what's going on. But you've been kind of embarking on something that very few people I know have been, which is to turn your entire business into a Bitcoin business, and not in the business of trading Bitcoin or selling Bitcoin to people, but just like doing what you do, but running it entirely or trying to, slowly like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon, just shedding the old fiat skin, trying to just turn it into entirely off the fiat free business, which is something that like I'm starting to learn how to do. You're definitely like at least a year or so ahead of me on this stuff because I've been Mr. Lone Gun trying to live on
Yeah.
crypto. But now it's like not everyone can just do that. And also, if your business gets shut down, your business bank accounts get shut down, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter how personal, like your personal, like Dragon's Hoard is okay. You're still kind of in a rough spot if you're a business owner.
Right.
So, do you want to just quickly tell the viewers at home, as they say, kind of what you do and when you started this journey of living on Bitcoin specifically for the business?
Yeah. So I've been in the animation industry for about 23 years now. And about 13 years ago, I started my own business. And I mean, we've just been producing shows for a lot of large name companies and streaming services. And in 2021, we decided to experiment with accepting Bitcoin as payment for projects. And then we started towards the end of Q3 in 2021 to issue payments out to employees and vendors. And so that was pretty interesting. We'd been exploring Bitcoin since 2019 and reading about it, trying to understand like how does this function, looking for ways to either build a company treasury. I mean, it's a small business, so don't let the word company
Mm-hmm.
distract everybody. It's very much a family oriented business. Um, but yeah, we have been slowly trying to adopt Bitcoin and even stable coins into the mix because as a remote company, we have employees and workers everywhere around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had problems with PayPal, Western Unions, you name the gamut. And at some point, there's been an issue. Um, and it was much more so in 2020. We took a really defensive measure with Bitcoin simply because we were watching other businesses who are, if you're so much as, left of the current administration by
Hmm.
a millimeter, it's enough to cause problems.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy being in the industry and not sharing a lot of the same ideologues with people. And it's just too much of a risk to be in fiat and to have a different opinion. But once you finally establish yourself with a defensive measure, it's like, well, now I have something to protect my business and continue on. Then you feel a little bit more, let's say, confident to. You don't have to express your opinions, all the time, but you feel a little bit more confident that you can continue on if something bad happens. Um, and then we experienced this a couple of times where we've had workers over in Asia, and there's tensions there, and for one thing led to another, and all of a sudden we can't send traditional wires to people, and the only way to pay them was through Bitcoin. Then the
Mm.
other way was through the that we learned in I can't believe it's this year, but the Canadian trucker incident with the Freedom Convoy. We had
Yeah.
some workers that were terrified and they couldn't get to their bank account or any of that, and the only way we could pay them was through Bitcoin. And so we learned the lessons, like this is how valuable it is to not be in fiat. And I recall during the Canadian trucker incident, just spending 2 weeks, helping our workers, helping other businesses to onboard onto Bitcoin, and just show them like this is why you do it. It's not just NGU, number go up.
Hmm.
This is also very like pragmatic, practical, you know, uh, risk management approach to making sure you can produce and keep your business going, keep your people moving.
Yeah.
Then, excuse me, in we and so like in the last part of Q3 in 2021, um, when we started promoting the idea of people getting paid in Bitcoin, we let them know that they could take small portions between like 1% all the way up to 100%. It just they need to let
Hmm.
us know what their comfort zone is, what their threshold for risk tolerance is. Um, and slowly, I mean, when as the bull market was coming up in I think towards the latter the latter half of November, people really started getting on board because they saw the number go up and the purchasing power increase, etc.
Yeah.
And then once the first dip, major crash happened,
You scare them
people
all away.
it really did. It scared people off. But slowly, like for myself, because I've been sort of leading the way, because I live on it myself now, and
Mm.
it's not just in the bull market where it's been really good. I've been trying to go through the bear market as well and learning along the way and kind of building up tolerance and uh, resilience and showing them that this is still viable no matter what. And the way that people would get paid, they still have small increments of increased purchasing power too. So it's not just you buy at the top and then you wait, until you're at the bottom. It's like, no,
Yeah.
your pay is going to be this fixed amount, and then maybe there's like a 1%, 2% increase, when they get it, and that's when they're learning to start taking it. So in the beginning, we started off with like maybe uh, it started off with 50% of the team taking wages in various degrees of Bitcoin, um, and
Yeah.
then in like our last quarter, quarter 3 of 2022, we found that 50% of the team has now been taking their pay in Bitcoin.
Mm.
And when I mean like 50% of them, I mean they're taking 100% of their net wage in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that's been a
That's
really big
it's
improvement.
clearly something has worked. So when you started this, obviously you have a traditional company, you got
Mhm.
traditional bank accounts, all the other stuff, and then like what's the first step? You just sign up with an exchange and then just buy some? Is that kind of like the first step that you had to take?
Yeah, I mean, the first step I'd say is to get a wallet.
Hmm.
That's the first one, right? There's plenty of really amazing wallets out there. Uh, we're really big fans of Sparrow Wallet, simply for a lot of the privacy features it offers. And then go sign up with an exchange, because I think the issue as of this year has been people go sign up for an exchange and then purchase their coins and then leave it on the exchange,
Oh yeah.
or they transact with it from the exchange, which totally negates the purpose of why we have Bitcoin in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like we're not trying to replicate the fiat system, we're trying to do something better. So I always advise it's like get a wallet first, then go to an exchange. You can sign up as a business. So if people are worried about, the whole KYC aspect of it, well, you have a little bit of a buffer between, your company's employment identification number and your social security and all that.
Hmm.
So there's a little obfuscation on that end. So you can buy it as a business, and then you can deposit it into your company wallet, and then from your company wallet you can disperse payments accordingly, right? So
Yeah. And so
it's
did you
not.
need to hire a different accountant, or like how did so you get a wallet, like,
Mhm.
and then you sign up for an exchange account, well, a company exchange
Right,
account. You buy some to keep it in the wallet to pay people. And
right.
so did you have to get a completely new accountant? Did you have to just be, you look at me, I am the accountant now? Like, how did it, because I'm sure the average business, you're like, hey, Mr. Accountant person, why don't you go get a Sparrow wallet real quick and then sign up for this exchange? They're going to look at me like, I quit, I'm done. So,
Yeah,
how did
it's
that work?
so our CPA has been very skeptic on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. So when we
Hmm.
even like broached the topic back in 2019, he was already crossed armed and just not. I don't want to budge. And what we had to do was, yeah, basically become our own bookkeepers and accountants and learn the process. And then, as we would meet periodically, train our accounting team. Like, here's how we handle this. Right? This is how we, put this on the balance sheet. This is where we send payments out to people. We didn't go through the whole uh, theoretical aspects of Bitcoin. We just focused on functionality and saying
Yeah.
this is how we receive, this is how we send, this is how we monitor, spot price and the exchange rate. And eventually, over the year, we we found a way to implement that into the books, and how do we
Hmm.
report that. So now everybody's much more comfortable on the accounting side, and there are accountants and CPA firms that exist. Um, we met some by going to the conferences around town, and the bigger ones in Miami. But they are few and far between still, and this is one of those areas where you have to learn about basic accounting, basic bookkeeping. It's not too hard, but um, it really is just about keeping details of your transactions. So you can pass over to them. They know what to look at, and they know how to report it accordingly.
Yeah, and so if you have like a bank account and it's, I guess, relatively straightforward with the accounting, where you have money in, money out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Whereas now it's like you have a separate account if you have just one cryptocurrency. I know there's some businesses that deal with a few,
Yeah,
but now not only is it a second bank account, but it's money in, money, the value when you sent it somewhere else. And
right.
so it's not just in out, it's in and then updated value out kind of thing. And
Correct.
so that just, I mean, for a very small business, kind of like a single, like the taco shop around the corner trying to do their taxes, I'm sure this is a little bit intimidating. But if you're already going through like accounting books, like complex books with like hundreds of transactions and payrolls and stuff like that, it's probably just like an extra layer on top of that. It's probably something that once you have an actual accountant working on, it's not that hard probably.
Right. I mean, because it's all just about processing information. If you make it simple and clear to understand, what you received, what the exchange rate was when you received it, and then if you use it, what did you send it out as, and what was the exchange rate? I mean,
Hmm.
the accounting people will do their wizardry and figure it out so long as the info is clear. But I think maybe that's the thing, is because all this stuff is still relatively new, where people
Hmm.
are having to deal with a different type of tech. They feel intimidated by it when it's actually very straightforward. It's just how you ingest stuff. and then how you process and how you are able to share the info with your team. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that we kind of figured is not just jumping in, with both feet, but kind of leading the way for like your accounting team. So some studios that I know, they have their own internal accounting, group. They're not using a firm, and they're very used to the numbers and how things move in and out. But and there's no real difference from Bitcoin accounting. It's just now you're changing the unit of account and you're including, the value from when you send and receive. So it's just like you said, adding a layer. And
Yeah. It's
speaking of like the taco shops, there are a few places that I've known where their accounting method is literally a notebook that they got
mm-hmm.
from, like Office Max or something, and they they still jotted down like how much they sell, this burrito for, this drink for, in
Yeah.
terms of dollars in their cash, and they're all cash only.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a place that's not too far from where we live. I mean, the restaurant's been open since 1950, and it's always been cash only.
Yeah.
Even today, it's still just cash. And looking at their register, they're one of those places. They have one of physical ledger, and they write everything by hand. I've been trying to onboard them for about a year because it's like it's just like cash, right? If you want to check this out, write down what you got, how much it was for. And
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be challenging for them though because you're not just trying to get them into like the 21st century. You're trying to get them to the Bronze Age first. And then they're still way in the past and look the
yeah,
scrolls. So you get this basic accounting system where you got a spreadsheet and then you got your accountants kind of figured out on that. You have a company wallet and then you got an exchange. Then you buy it. So at that point, what's the strategy for buying? Do you take like some of your reserves and just like convert it in and then do you re-up it once in a while? Like what was the strategy as far as buying? Like how much exposure do you get to it?
right. So our first go around, what we did was we waited until payday,
Mm-hmm.
and we wired funds into the exchange because it only took about 30 minutes for funds to arrive and clear,
Mm-hmm.
versus if we did an ACH, which would take anywhere from 3 to 5 business days. So wiring it into the exchange, waiting 30 minutes, and then once we received all the payroll for that week, we'd purchase the amount that we needed, maybe a little extra, but like 10% more just for a buffer, put it into the wallet, and then siphon out payments. And then whatever was left over, we sent it over to our own cold storage, and that
Mm-hmm.
became our savings in a way. That built up over time too. And then we had a treasury strategy as well, where we wanted to take profits from projects, and then we would just buy coins and then send it to cold storage. And so it's kind of like this uh, dual, dual strategy where we take our profits, put it into Bitcoin, take payroll, put on the exchange, buy, and then distribute.
Yeah, and so mostly the buying, it isn't like we have a war chest, we're trying to build that up. It's just purely for payroll, pretty much,
Mhm.
and then anything extra just kind of goes in there.
Right, and it's worked out, very well so far. Um, when we find that, because we're also like mostly quote unquote cash. So I mean, everything we
Mm-hmm.
do is we're not we have no debt as a company,
Yeah.
which is very unique in our business. And so for us to have any kind of like losses to write off, we actually found that having a volatile asset like Bitcoin helps us do tax loss harvesting, so we can lower taxes as well. So that's a third strategy that we have. And this would be something for like the taco shop that's making all its money cash, right? If
Mm-hmm.
let's presume they have no debt, no outstanding loans or liabilities,
Yeah.
and they're just sitting on profit, and they want to make sure that they can retain their capital as much as possible. If they had Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and let's say it dropped 10%, and they wanted to harvest that loss, they could sell the coins, buy it back, have a new cost basis,
Mm-hmm.
and have a loss to show in the books, right? But they would still have the same amount of coins. So it's a good way for like cash businesses or very high profit businesses to lower tax liabilities as well.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. So you got that going on.
Mhm.
When you onboard individuals like the employees, just say, "Hey, you want to take it and stuff." Do you just say, like, kind of as a courtesy, "Hey, if you take this, here's some wallets that we personally use. Why don't you? Here's some resources. Here you go." Or do you have to design a whole like how to take your salary in Bitcoin kind of information packet with like recommended wallets and stuff? Like, did you have to like build new material and content for like HR material, or did you just kind of like it's on you to do it, but as a courtesy, we'll kind of tell you some of the better ways.
Yeah, what we did was we made sort of a wiki page, very
Mm-hmm.
simple, straightforward, matter of fact. And there it does have recommended wallets that we like and we promote for people to use because we're about financial privacy as well when it comes to the individuals
Mm-hmm.
and also security. So once they come on board, I mean, it's very matter of fact. It's like, here's payments, in the handbook, it'll go, here's how payments work. You can receive it as paper check, bank wire, blah, 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 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And just toss it into the mix. We're not trying to like glorify this and make this this is the only thing that you should ever use. And it's just, yeah, like, here's an option, very simple, normalized. And then, oh, I'd like to know, how do I get my pay in Bitcoin? And we pass them over our wiki page, which is just a single page of get a wallet, here's an exchange if you need it, here's services like pay with Moon, bit refill if you want to use it directly, here's how to
Yeah.
keep track of your earnings. And our CPA and what they offer to our team too is like if they need accounting services for taxes, they're open to taking on their workload as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a nice service. And just making it as normal as possible and not trying to intimidate people or force it down their throats. It's like, here's an option. If you like it, here's info. And if you need help, we're here. And
Yeah.
that's that.
And so when you get all that, so you set up the infrastructure, the basic accounting infrastructure. You
Mhm.
figure out how you're going to deal with it, as in you buy it, and then you buy a little extra for payroll. You kind of like have extra payroll, and then you shuffle some over into the cold storage for profit or tax loss harvesting or whatever. You have a little wiki guide for people to get paid,
Yeah.
and then how do you start taking it as a business, like for payments? What do you do as far as invoicing? So I assume when you have invoice right now, you either have some like automated invoicing thing that just sends like a digital invoice to your, that can be easily paid with like a bank number and all that stuff. Again, forgive some of my like haven't been in fiat in 7 years kind of stuff, but like so with this, do you have another smooth invoicing system like that? Do you just have a little like Bitcoin address and Bitcoin amount? Do you invoice in dollars? Do you invoice in a Bitcoin amount? Like, how do you do that as far as like being paid as a company?
Right. So we have a couple of strategies for being paid as a company. The first one that seems to work for people has been, here's the, because we do everything via contracts, right? So on the contract, we'll specify the amount in dollars, and then Bitcoin is used as just a payment rail, similar to
Mm-hmm.
like PayPal or Zelle or whatever, or Bankwire. So we'll say, um, this is the amount in dollars. The payment method is going to be through Bitcoin. When it comes time to invoice, which is at regularly scheduled periods, we're milestone based or biweekly to match with payroll. We'll send out the invoice and then we'll send out the exchange rate on top of it. And so with it will come the exchange rate. So it's like, here's uh, this week is 10,000. Here's the Bitcoin exchange rate for that amount of money, and then here's our wallet address. You can pay it there, right? So they'll pay in that manner. Another method that we've done, we've only maybe had like two projects that have taken this, but we actually priced the projects in Bitcoin. So we took, for us, we looked at what's the 6 month average, and then here's the price in Bitcoin. So this is going to cost you like 2.5 Bitcoin. And they can buy it at any amount.
Hmm.
whether it's high or low, if they wanted to wait for things to get lower. But at the end of the day, this is the contractual price for Bitcoin, and they can pay us in those installments based on the Bitcoin amount. And then that one though has been a little tricky because then we also have to price the work being done in Bitcoin. So
Hmm.
it took a little bit to kind of figure that out, but it's not impossible. It's just sitting down and trying to, you know, crunch numbers and seeing what's workable.
Yeah. So, are there any invoicing kind of software that you use that specifically supports Bitcoin, or you just do the usual invoicing and just have a little addendum at the bottom that's like, instead of a bank, pay here, BC1, whatever the hell,
Yeah,
address.
I mean, what we have our own customized invoice, so it has like company branding and logo
Hmm.
designs, and then we just take the QR code, paste that into the memo, take the Bitcoin address, paste that into the memo as well with a note,
Hmm.
and we send it off to them, and then they'll pay, that way.
Yeah. And so you never had to like get merchant software or anything like e-commerce things or anything because it's all like the it's a little bit more relational between like you and the client, and it's just you
Right.
can actually send an invoice like
Yeah, I mean, we tried a few different services like for merchants, and we just found like it was a little cumbersome. Like it was
mhm.
helpful in a way, but at the same time, it's just, well, we can do this ourselves,
Yeah,
right? Like it's
be
not
your own
difficult.
bank.
Yeah, essentially. So, I mean, we were using Bitwage at first,
Hmm.
and then we found out like how they make their money on the spreads,
Hmm.
and how they actually distribute it, and we realized like, oh, we can do that. Why don't we do that? You know,
Hmm.
and it took a little extra effort, not that much effort, um, but really just the will to want to do it. And
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing that we found out is that if there's no desire to move in that direction, I mean, you can orange pill as much as you want, but you can't make that horse drink. When you're
Yeah.
at the water source, it just doesn't work.
So, yeah, so that's getting paid and paying your employees. Um, Now, as far as paying expenses that aren't payroll, are there any
Hmm.
expenses that aren't payroll that you found a way to pay with Bitcoin?
Yep. Pay with Moon has been the godsend. I wish there were more companies like them. Bit Refill has also been a godsend too. So like when we've had to buy equipment or replace stuff, it's been Pay with
Hmm.
Moon, and we'll use pay like we'll go to Amazon or the Apple Store, either physical location for the Apple Store or other equipment places. Get buy the amount that we need from Pay with Moon,
Hmm.
and then process payment right there.
So you have like a company pay with Moon account kind of thing.
Yes.
And then a company bit refill one, so you get those rewards, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah. And a random question: have you experimented with the bit refill bill pay thing at all for like the company? Because I know
Uh,
they have a little spread on that for convenience, you know, to allow animals like me to do it. But like, yeah,
I mean, we most of the bills that we have we could take care of with Pay with Moon and a
yeah,
gift card, which is really interesting because I mean, um, we thought we were going to have to sign up for stuff like that, but being a remote company, I
mm-hmm,
mean, like even the like house bills, it's
mm-hmm.
been Pay with Moon has been super simple to just pay the water bill, the and
Yeah. I
just get
mean,
it done.
it's pretty crazy because like as far as I know, pay with Moon is limited to like 250 per virtual card that you make. So you can buy like a digital one use Visa card for like 250 at a time. So I guess that would be the upper limit of how big of a purchase you can make with it, right?
I mean, we've purchased up to like 5 grand from Pay with Moon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that changed because we recently have been paying more people directly, and
Mm-hmm.
paying certain like we switched carriers for our phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were with T-Mobile, but then we noticed that AT&T actually accepts Bitcoin payments via BitPay, and we're just
Interesting.
like, yeah. So we decided to switch carriers and go with AT&T because, well, now we can pay directly.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need, and another? Why do we need to make any hops if now there's a less friction between us and the bill payer. Or yeah,
Yeah. So basically, you do the old like living on crypto type stuff that like we do on an individual basis. You just have like a company version of that to then go pay
right,
all that.
right.
Yeah. So, what percentage of things expenses do you think are you're able to pay directly with some kind of crypto without a workaround like a bit refill or something?
Right now, it's just the one phone bill.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, everything else has been like bit refill or pay with Moon, and that's really
Yeah.
been the crux of it. But
And then of
we're
course
still,
payroll, which is
yeah,
probably your biggest expense anyway, right?
it is. So I mean, we still have a fiat bank account, which right now the company's about 50-50. So
Mm-hmm.
50% Bitcoin, 50% fiat, and I've actually been we've been having meetings and chats with accounting about potentially shifting that where we're going into stable coins instead, right?
Mm,
Versus being just in
yeah.
the bank itself. And
Ape it all
what,
into UST.
yeah, just what's going to be more beneficial for us because we know CBDCs are on the way, and we found out that our bank is going to be participating in that, and that already has me like, nope, we're done. We're moving funds out of here. Going to open a
Mm,
smaller bank because we still need to connect with the fiat world, and people aren't ready to 100% jump into the crypto space because we're like I said, we're 50% of people who are already there, but then there's the other 50 who are not,
mm,
and trying to get them to say, okay, well, even just the stable coin, right?
yeah.
USDT, right? This is still one to one. If they signed up with an exchange, it's like, yeah, there's KYC, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, for example, we were reading that Coinbase's policy with stable coins is that they don't, the gas fee is essentially, you refunded, or they take care of the gas fee for you if you're using it via their card. I think that
Mm,
was the same thing with Exodus. It's like you can have it go directly to a USDT wallet. Um, but trying to onboard that half of the team so that way we can hopefully completely get out of the fiat system. You know?
yeah. And
But that's long. Yeah.
stablecoins are a dicey proposition too because in a certain extent they're like crypto fiat where it's all the fun of crypto with just the value of fiat kind of thing. But in other ways they're kind of more fiat than fiat in that
Yeah.
like dollars and bank stuff is pretty stable. It's pretty reliable, even though obviously you can get censored and all that stuff. But then you have like obviously the UST stablecoin went down in a big blaze of glory. USDC on Ethereum is pretty. They have some address filtering and censorship and stuff, which actually causes the transaction fees to go up over other ERC-20 because the smart contract has to go filter the bad addresses out when it
Right.
sends. And then you have like Tether's kind of one of those things where I have I don't think Tether's gonna famous last words depending on when this podcast came out, but I don't think it's gonna collapse anytime soon. At the same time as I also trust it much less than bank like dollars in a bank account
Right.
because the fractional reserve elements and then the illiquid assets that they have backing it and the opaqueness. And so obviously you got to be very careful with the dance with the stable coins. But on the other hand, like a CBDC is could be potentially a lot worse.
Yeah. I mean, pick your poison. That's the,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, this is kind of the thing I've been learning too is that you have to make, as a business that's especially just getting into it, it has to be small,
Mm-hmm.
gradual steps to adoption, right? And you know, we found that it's just easier. Come payroll,
Mm-hmm.
it's just way smoother to operate on Bitcoin than it has been with, the fiat folks, right?
Yeah.
Because we still have there's some folks who still, we have to wire it in, and even though we've been banking with the same bank for a decade and more, we still have to get on the phone, tell them, yep, this person is, we're doing business with them, or if we send a payment via Western Union, have to get on the phone with them again because they block payments, and it's just a hassle. Versus here's the wallet address, and we pay you that day,
Yeah.
and
It's
that's
so
it.
much better. Like I can't even imagine the annoyance of like, or just how primitive that is of like you have to like shout from the bottom of the watchtower, release the payments. What?
Yep.
Release it's just
Yeah.
like it's so weird that like you can't just pay. It just you gotta get on the phone with someone. Like who gets on the phone anymore?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, to one part, I understand that they're trying to protect their customers and make sure that, well, it's really protect themselves from liability if something happens.
Yeah.
But the part that I really that's there was an encounter that I had with Western Union that really set me off. We were trying to pay some folks out over in the UK, and we're getting phone calls from Western Union. It's like you have payments going out to the UK, to Canada, to the Philippines, to Mexico. We want to know, like, are these people like legitimate? It's like, well, yeah, we registered everybody's contact info, made us go through this entire process that took hours, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're still blocking payment. And it's like, well, this is for your your safety and your security. And I mean, they talk to me and our accountant as if we were 5 years old, and it's just ridiculous. It's like, why did you make us go through all of this noise? Why did we jump through the hoops? Why did we even like? Why are we even having the call? Like, this is ridiculous. And we're done. We're terminating this service. We're never using you guys again. And that's when I let everybody know too. Hey, would you be willing to take your pay in Bitcoin? We can get you set up and walk through. And some of them were just like, yeah, sure, we'll take it. And that was one way to onboard too. By the way, it was just
Mm-hmm.
that friction between fiat and different countries and nations.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. I was just talking with Jeremy from the Bitcoin Cash podcast the other day about St. Kitts and stuff and the adoption scene there. And it is kind of interesting the way certain types of businesses, certain types of geographies are much more predisposed to be able to take crypto. And it tends to be the ones that are very international on a small scale kind of thing. That they don't. It's not like they're working with giant clients overseas, but a
right,
bunch of small clients, a bunch of places around the world, or like a tourist hotspot zone is a great spot where there's people who are used to all kinds of different currencies coming through on a daily basis anyway. Even if the local populace never uses crypto, you can still sustain an economy off of the tourism. And
right,
so it's kind of the same thing where like I doubt if you had a company that was like a restaurant distribution service in like the heartland of the U.S. or something. Like it would probably be a little. You obviously could still do all this stuff, but you wouldn't have those friction examples as plentifully as you do now to be like, this is why this matters.
right. Yeah, it's just I don't know. Ever since personally being on it, it's hard to go back to fiat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as a business, seeing the process of how simple it is to make payments, accept it, right, and know that you have funds available 24/7. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. You can just see how outdated the fiat system is,
Yeah,
and it's just really difficult to continue to keep doing business. It just feels like we're the Flintstones, and we're constantly dropping our feet to the floor, pedaling our stone car when there's somebody else with a gas powered engine. And
yeah, that's for sure. So as far as like um, revenue, do you get much Bitcoin revenue as a company as far as just like in?
not much. Our industry is very slow to change,
Mm-hmm.
which is a shame. I mean, our industry used to be very much on the innovative front, designing all kinds of tech and new ways to do things. And for like the last, I'd say, maybe like 15 years or so, it's been lagging. The innovation's gone. It's just been same old, same old, same old. And trying to onboard the newer companies that come up who are more open to the tech, they're for it. but the larger entities that we tend to work with aren't. Um, so
Yeah. So it seems like you got like a few occasional clients that'll pay you in Bitcoin. Most of the Bitcoin in is from leftovers of buying for payroll.
mhm.
And then you just got that around and then you get to spend a lot. So do you ever overbuy? So do you ever overbuy so you can spend? Because I know you talked about the how you go about using it as far
Mhm.
as these different hacks and stuff. But do you ever buy like an intentional balance that's not just this is how we pay people and this is what we have left over?
Yep, we did that. I mean, especially recently when we saw the dip, and things were dropping pretty severely to, I think it's like sub 16K. We
Mm-hmm.
decided to make a strategic purchase to buy a few coins and put those in the company coffers and just kind of let them sit.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of risky, and
Yeah.
I know once we got into the 15K range, it was just questioning whether the decision was a smart one,
Yeah.
or if this. I mean, we have to take the
it's
long view,
it's like
right?
that Matthew McConaughey with the cigarette. Like, it's just
Pretty
like,
much.
whoa.
I mean, the whole
Mm,
FTX thing really kind of shook the team, and
mm,
it's kind of having to sit down and think about why we're doing this, and part of it is like I really believe that we do need to have money separate from state.
yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
It's critical, and even more so as we start seeing we're coming into like the digital dark ages with CBDCs, and many people don't even think about this stuff, right? So artists especially don't think about money. The only time they think about money is when their accounts are empty and they've got bills to pay. But outside of that, you know, the idea of money being a language
Hmm.
and being able to communicate value and how important it is for people to have ownership of that ability to speak financially doesn't cross their mind. So it's kind of scary to think that that's the future and where we're going. And so we kind of founded our little MO to say, well, we want to promote the technology. We want to promote, I mean, this is stuff that I personally believe in too, is like personal freedom and liberty. And we want other people to have that, appreciation for it as well. Um,
Yeah.
and this was
And
just
then,
like yeah, just a simple step, right? It's not, a giant revolution. Like we're not on a soapbox trying to, chant to the crowd. We're just trying to do
mm,
this stuff very small, slowly, and in a very
meaningfully.
meaningful way, and something that's going to help people uh, subtly, right?
Hmm.
And just trying to make this as normal as possible.
Yeah. So, how has the bear market kind of been? Because this is like a new era for some people. I mean, for me, it's just kind of like you stack up the wood before the winter. Like, it just for me, it's like it's very seasonal to my life, right?
Right.
Let's see, 2013. Third bear market is almost in the rearview mirror for me, and so just the way it goes. But like, as far as a company is concerned, when I'm sure, first off, do you have any disruptions with payments from like you have to buy and you buy with a buffer, but then there's a dip beyond the buffer when you pay people, or there's a bit dip not quite at the buff, like almost to the buffer, and by the time people check their wallets, they've already lost a little bit, and then they start freaking out and don't want to do this anymore. So just from the payroll side of things and like the speed of dips, have you
Hmm.
gotten much friction from that?
We had one incident where I think Bitcoin dropped 5% on
Mm-hmm.
payday, and we were going to take a hit. We were going to spend more coin, than usual. But at the same time, we're like, well, how can we take this to our advantage? All right, we can claim the loss,
Mm-hmm.
and claiming the loss is going to help us lower our tax liability. So it's not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That's the silver lining in all this. But at the same time, we tried to calm everybody's fears who was taking their payment and saying, look, um, if you're going to have this on the exchange, right? And most of them do
Mm-hmm.
have an exchange account, and they're like, send it here. They'll convert to a stable coin, from the exchange, and then they'll kind of like, settle out, and they're fine.
Yeah.
So it's like learning how to ride the wave of volatility, and not just being like, okay, I got paid, and I'm going to hodl until moon, and then it dips, and then everybody panics, and like, I don't want to do this anymore. Now it's just, okay, let's be more conscientious about our own financial responsibilities. Like, I have a
Mm-hmm.
bill coming up, you know, maybe I should set aside the amount of fiat I need to pay that specific bill, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of wait, and that's, for me, this is, I guess, my first bear market. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm learning a lot, definitely. So it's like, okay, when I get paid, and I know that I have a bill coming up that's fiat oriented, or that I'm gonna have to pay with, I'm gonna use to pay with pay with Moon or something. I'll set aside the funds immediately, and then kind of keep some coin on the side if I want to spend, or living
Mm-hmm.
lean at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been interesting. It hasn't shit. I mean, it shook a little bit of my resolve. But then afterwards, it's thinking about it like long term. It's like, no, this is the reason why you're doing this. This stuff isn't going to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the change is gradual, and it takes time, because then you have to look at the opposite side of the deal, and being in fiat is just way riskier.
Yeah, in ways people don't really realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um, having a dip in overall funds available for the company doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal because a lot of that was just war chest anyway,
Right.
and you were getting constant fiat revenue, and then you just converted to Bitcoin for expenses, like for like payroll and stuff. But so it wasn't like it was just as long as you didn't have a rough payday, most of things was just business as usual, other than business as usual, and then a little bit of tax loss harvesting in order to like be like we're good, like
Yeah.
to kind of benefit from it, and then so it sounds like it's kind of it's one of those moments when you think about it, you kind of realize how much again personal opinion only, but how much a leech the government is, because like the way you capitalize on market volatility is by making sure the government steals just a little bit less from you.
Right.
And it's just like, I mean, I guess these dips would be a lot more scary if you didn't have tax loss harvesting, but how much more money would you have if you didn't have to pay all that to the government to begin with? And so
Right.
it's kind of an interesting thing. And so it seems like you're pretty much in a good position to just keep going like this. Like because you're able to get fiat, turn it into crypto right away to pay stuff, and then the rest is just kind of like on the side and it goes up and down or whatever. And
Right.
so, especially now when you hit one of my favorite seasons is bear market bottom season, because like the only time like there's like four seasons of crypto, which
Hmm.
is it's high, it's low, and it's going up and it's going down. And three of those seasons are great, right? When it's going up, it's great because you're just getting more money all the time. When
Right.
it's at its high, it's great. When it's at its low, it's also great because you can still operate like day to day. You just still get more, you still spend more. It's fine. It's only when you're in the process of the downturn where it's actually a pain. So as long as you kind of figure out that, I guess the rest is just like business as usual.
Yeah. What we found was, like, on the downturn for this year, you know, because again, we have two strategies. There's the treasury strategy, and then there's the operating expenses strategy.
Mm-hmm.
The operating expenses is, yep, when it's time to make payments, let's buy enough and send out. But the treasury one is like, how do we build that war chest and gradually, exit fiat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the treasury side, it's been like dollar cost averaging monthly. And, we buy little, you know, at certain points. And then when the drop came, that big dip, that's when we decided, okay, let's take a risk and buy, you know, what we
Mm-hmm.
think is a relatively, acceptable amount. It could go, I don't know where it would be, but the idea has been, at least in my mind, and that I've been trying to communicate probably ineffectively with the team, is that gradually and slowly we're going to go from, fiat to Bitcoin, and then as that changes, we'll end up having more Bitcoin than fiat, naturally.
Yeah.
And hopefully, at one point, we can slowly, we'll be out of fiat entirely. But it's trying to get our clients to pay in Bitcoin too, which would be
Mm-hmm.
nice. But I also found as well that sometimes sometimes the market is a little scary because you don't have enough
Mm-hmm.
of Bitcoin, right? So it's like, oh, I'm watching the value of my coins drop. Well, you don't have enough, right?
Yeah.
It's, this is time to stock up. And I mean, after the shakeout, I've just been like, oh no, actually, I really come to like this bear market a lot. You know?
Yeah. I mean, assuming the next bull market, that's the thing about crypto is you don't know what's going to go up. You don't know how much it's going to go up. You just generally think, oh well, this is good stuff. Fiat is not good stuff. Over time, this beats that out, and uh, I think that I think a lot of people have lost their laser eyes this last bear market because they, it's both figuratively true and like literally true, metaphorically, because of misplaced expectations of gains.
Yeah.
Where I heard a lot of people saying like easy 120K Bitcoin this cycle. What about 178? Like some conservative people were like 120, 170K. And then other people were like 300K to a million this cycle or whatever. All these crazy predictions. And not going to bash the 69,420 that Bitcoin got to, which is the elegant one. But it was at the same time a big disappointment for some people. And then each previous bull market was like the bottom was higher than like the top of the previous one. And
Yeah.
this one wasn't quite like that. I mean, it went significantly below the 20 grand top of 2017. And I'm sure it's different inflation adjusted, But I think a lot of if you expect gains, like if you expect things that you can't guarantee, I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But if you expect things you can guarantee, which is uh, on a lesser level over the long term, this is going to be more valuable than inferior forms of money. But more specifically on the all the time term, this is going to be a much faster and easier and permissionless and risk free, relatively risk free money to use. And then that you don't care about the season in that case.
Yeah, and that's the funny part is because I'm coming at this from two perspectives, right? Because like on the personal side, I'm all in, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just been interesting because the idea of astronomical gains has kind of dissipated. Like it's no longer thinking that way now. It's just like, does it work? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It, can I use this as payments? Can I get through the mortgage? Can we get through buying food? Can we live our lives still? Does it still work? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the opposite side from the business end, which is like, okay, purchasing power up, which is helpful. Um, but that slowly has been changing to just, does it work? You know, and it's weird how most people enter it thinking, hey, I'm gonna moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna get myself out of poverty, or I'm gonna get myself out of this situation, or I'm gonna have more money to pay for all these luxurious goods or necessities or whatever the case may be. And then after, like, if you're all in, now you realize, like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean gain? Like, the fact of the matter is, like, this is the money now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does it matter? What
Yeah.
bull or bear market? Like, this is what I use.
Yeah.
And some days I pay less, some days I pay more. Um, what I have found though is that over time, you know, you do end up with more purchasing power, and that's, I
Mm-hmm.
think, what really matters. Yeah, I think that's what really matters the most. Is just the fact that you're able to find small increases in that ability. But I mean,
Mm.
yeah, the Wall Street, Jane Street, gains, I think is a little misplaced,
Hmm.
but it is where most people start out. You know,
Well, that's I'm sure it's where some people start out. A lot of it is it's kind of like the tyranny of the majority, I call it, like where you have the largest group of people interested in crypto are about gains. And
right?
so therefore, let's just say, I don't know, let's say it's 40 to 60%. Let's just throw a random number that I have no data behind and I don't even know if I believe it. But like let's say 40 60% are just in it for the gains, and then 30, let's say 30 or percent or so are actually in it because they're interested in technology and would love to think it's so cool to use this instead of the old money and things. So like the 30%, 95% of the content caters to the majority. And
Yeah.
so even though it is the majority, it's not that big of a majority. And I think that one of the reasons why that Wall Street kind of mindset is prevalent is because other people have nowhere to go. I mean, every time I talk about trying to live on crypto and stuff, people like there's new people that get like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's cool." Who just like weren't doing anything and now they like I have a resource. And
Hmm.
so that's a great way to, shill your book right now, right? Cuz you're working on a book about how to build a business on Bitcoin.
Right. I mean, it's just trying to teach and show small businesses because the large C corps, uh, especially the publicly traded companies, they have a
Mhm.
very different set of rules to play by. But the book is really for like the mom and pop shop, you know, the small business entities that are like 50 people below. Like how can they adopt something new, and also just like how is it that this benefits them in the end, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then also I have the website living on bitcoin.substack.com where I'm just showing like my experiences of living like on an entirely Bitcoin standard, um, the ups and downs, the pros, the cons, and just trying to be as transparent as I can be, right?
Mhm.
Um, because it's not really that hard. I think at the end of the day, it's really a desire to do it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think the majority of the noise is coming from a minority group of individuals, and people look for, maybe this is just human nature where people are looking for a leader, to kind of guide them and show them the way and say,
Yeah.
right. Because I mean, that's what I was doing when I was looking for resources on how to run a business, on Bitcoin, and I can't find any.
It's just not there.
No,
So
it's not
it's
there.
just like the couple people, like I mentioned, with like Edge Wallet and stuff, that are just kind of just do it on their own, and no one else is really interested.
Yeah. So I mean, I I really think, especially with more and more, like from my experience of just like with people I'm dealing with, I'm watching the new companies kind of come up in the
Hmm.
remote space, and they're looking for ways to like pay their people faster, more efficiently, and I'm happy to be on their advisory board and show them like, hey, you can go this route, right? Go the crypto
Hmm.
route, whether that's going to be through a stable coin or you're going to use, Bitcoin, um, at least to show them that it's not impossible and that it is very approachable. And so more and more of these digital companies that exist only online, right? Like
Hmm.
I can see that this is going to become native to them, and they're going to adapt it much faster than the brick and mortars, much faster than the Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, right?
Yeah,
So it's definitely going to be a bottom up change.
as it should be.
Yes.
So, where do you direct people to find out about your book and stuff like that? I mean, obviously it's not out yet, so there's not maybe not that, but where's a good place to follow to then find that?
So they can join up on the Living on Bitcoin Substack, and gradually I'll be releasing some chapters there. Some for review, and I was going to take a page out of Antonopoulos, where it was just posting some of his work on GitHub as well. Although I've
Hmm.
heard GitHub has been a little censorious as of late, so looking for another
Yeah,
option.
posted everywhere.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
definitely gonna sell the physical copy for some coin, and then maybe open source the book after a while and just give it away and just say, hey, here you go. I don't know. I know some people have told me to monetize it because it's going to be your business. You should do that, but at the same time, I almost feel like I think this type of info needs to be accessible, and you know,
Yeah.
people really do need to have a resource because again, for myself, I can't find it, and I know other people can't either, and it's either because number one, everybody's keeping things close to the chest, or two, not many people are doing what they say they're doing. So
Yeah, a lot of both, I'm sure.
yeah,
This has been quite the enlightening chat, and we're going to definitely get some. I have a few business owners in mind who have been in crypto for over a decade, and their business doesn't take it even. And I've been like, I gotta shake them a little bit, and this is a good tool to shake them about like, this is literally like a field manual, like an hour long podcast field manual on just how to do it in a simple way. And it's like if you can't take those ideas and get started, I mean, you just don't want to. At that point.
right. That's been my conclusion. Is this the only reason why it hasn't happened is because there's no desire to.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. All right. Well, thanks for chatting, and hope you have a good one. See everyone next week.
all right, have a good one.